And I'll ask you to go ahead and Keith, so I'm going to start with a check-in and introduction and then give everyone a chance to introduce yourselves. So I'm Stephanie Rierick. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, but I am currently at Asilomar near Monterey. It's a retreat center in California. I'm here getting oriented to my fellowship with Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, and that's great, incredible, intense experience. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be with all of you today. So Keith, would you like to just say quickly who you are and what it is that interests you about mutual aid networks and what brings you here?
Yes, I'm a member of BASE, the Bay Area Community Exchange. I live in Richmond, California, and I've also been working on a mobile time banking application for over a year now.
Ooh, fantastic. Cool. Thank you. I really look forward to learning more. Patricia, you want to go next?
Sure. I am Patricia Mickelson, and my roots are in the Ozarks. I live in Fayetteville at this point, but right now I'm in the Bay Area for about 5 months. And I just learned about mutual aid network from Rains, and so it was just an amazing thing. All these amazing things came together so that we could have a workshop and have Stephanie here. So I'm just really excited about that.
Wonderful. Thank you. And okay, and you said Alice is with you?
Oh, yes.
Would you like to introduce
Alice?
yourself, Alice?
Uh-oh, she's chewing.
Okay, you can take a moment. And then let me just check, sometimes people are on that I can't see on the attendee list. Is there anyone else with us who hasn't had a chance to say hello yet? Okay, and I've heard from a couple of people that are with us in the recording later, but they can't make it right now. And then Alice, whenever you're ready, if you could just say hello and who you are and what brings you here, that would be great.
Hi, Stephanie. So I am been in the Bay Area for about a half century, and I'm from Portland, Oregon, and Patricia's support for the conference tomorrow and the unconference kind of thing.
Great.
So I'm looking forward to what happens in the next hour.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So anything else? Anyone else? Okay. So here we are at session number 4 of I believe it'll be a 7-week learning series, unless we end up deciding to consolidate a couple of sessions. But for now, it's intended to go, I believe, till June 26th, and it's on the websites that I shared with you. So this is to orient us to mutual aid networks, and this learning series is geared toward people who might be interested who are interested in exploring the possibility of becoming pilot sites for mutual aid networks, or people who are just interested in learning more to get involved. So the learning series is to kind of introduce you to some of the basic processes and skill sets that we think are very essential to developing mutual aid networks. So in the framework of mutual aid networks, our mission explicitly is about redesigning work by redesigning the economy through redesigning work, starting with redesigning our own work lives and those of people in our networks. And we have developed a framework. We are a cooperative. A mutual aid network is a type of cooperative. So legally, we are a cooperative, but we have enhanced core principles which build on the cooperative core principles, and then principles of time banking and principles of governance of the commons. And our mission explicitly is to create means for everyone to discover and succeed in work they want to do with the support of their community. And in order to do that, we need to operate differently in the world than we currently do under this dominant economy that we labor under very explicitly in North America. So in this online learning series, we really want to focus on the social processes of how we work together differently, and how we help each other to achieve sort of our capacity to accomplish our own visions. And this one is on Facilitation Basics. The goal for today is that we will leave this session with a basic understanding of how to facilitate meetings that build toward collective action. And as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, good facilitation skills take much more than an hour to build, and there's much more to it than we're going to be able to discuss in an hour. But the goal is to just really give an overview and framework and point you toward resources and just really establish the importance of good facilitation. So I want to go to an overview of this series so you know where this fits in with our learning flow. The first of the series, we just oriented people to what mutual aid networks are. So if you want more information about that, there's plenty on the website. And as I said, we've recorded each of these hour-long series. But just so people have a solid grounding in what it is we're talking about. The second one was about communications. How do you communicate to other people what mutual aid networks are, what they could do, but also how it applies to your own vision and potentially to their vision. And then last week, I ended up giving it a catchier title than this, but it was vision, mission, and aim, and mapping what you need for a core team if you're going to pursue a pilot site. We ended up giving it a better title called Vision to Action. I just didn't change it here. Today is about facilitation. So part of establishing a good vision, mission, and aim is bringing people together and having clear discussion about what our common goals are and how we might be able to pursue them. So that's good facilitation is essential to getting this going. Next week, we'll be going into tools and their applications, including our project management software and our exchange software, but also tools at a more general level, like what kind of exchange tool is going to be more appropriate and effective for the types of resources you're exchanging in a given circumstance. So talking about time banking and commons, building shared resources, and price-based mutual credit that can be used in businesses and savings pools, but then also the tools that we're using, specifically the Weezer software that we are working with to really manage our projects and make these exchanges within this context.
Thank you.
Session. Did someone want to jump in with a question or comment? Okay, feel free anytime. The next session will be about, we're calling it robust budgeting, but I think we'll change that name also to basic human livelihood. So tools that we have to really evaluate what are the actual resources we need to meet the variety of needs in our lives, and how can we displace our need for money by building up some of these other shared and more equitably exchanged kind of resources. And then last and absolutely not least, our enjoyable life workshop, which it's kind of like a work and life redesign to really start diving into how we evaluate what we really do want to do with our time, and then find ways that we can have good livelihoods doing the things that we want to do. So that's sort of the flow, and we are right in the middle of it. Any questions or comments? Okay. And then just to orient you again toward, or maybe for the first time, toward what a mutual aid network is all about. We come together around a common goal. The circle around this is the mutual aid network. So we are becoming a cooperative with these enhanced core principles. And we've established what we want to do in that cooperative. It might be restoring our watershed. It might be feeding people on the block once a day to make sure no one goes without eating and no one has to ask. It might be a global travel exchange. It might be a group of friends who want to redesign their lives so we can each do what we want to do with our time. For example, I would like to do much more music in my life, and I would like to find ways to be supported in doing that. So that's one example. So we come together around a common goal, and then we steward these resources. We use time banking. We use sharing, building up maybe a tool library, or maybe a shared computer with shared software that's expensive, whatever it is, baby clothes, it could be a maker space. So big to small, difficult to easy types of sharing. And also price-based mutual credit, which works kind of like, or it works a lot like time banking, but instead of exchanging hours at an hour per hour rate, you're exchanging credits that are either worth a dollar amount or have some other type of monetary equivalency. And that can be useful for business to business exchange or exchanging more professional kinds of services. And that's something that applies to things that are somewhat more scarce, but you want to create better opportunities for people to be able to access them. So I might buy $1,000 refrigerator from your business for my business, and I would pay the taxes on $1,000 worth of transaction, but the principal I owe back to other members of the network, I owe in goods and services. So that's how that form of mutual credit works. And then finally, community saving, lending, and investing pools. So taking the savings pool model where people put in money and take turns accessing sort of the whole sum of money to give yourself more buying power or to meet your needs in an emergency when you need it. Expanding on that vision too, which we'll talk more about when we go into the tools segment next week. But then we think it's essential to build in the social processes to build our capacity to use these things. So the work redesign assistance, which I touched on, how we can identify what we want to do with our time and find ways that we can actually do it and be supported. Then we're supported through this robust budgeting, basic human livelihood vision of I need money for just the things that are scarce and not available in my immediate community, the things that are more abundant, that are services like care and creativity and civic engagement and community building I could access through time banking, the things that are sort of in between scarce and abundant, I could use price-based mutual credit. I could tap into a savings pool if I suddenly have an emergency expense that I don't have, my own money for. Then also community investment assistance, helping people understand how to develop and use savings pools, how to allocate money fairly, transparently, and then project facilitation assistance. So really, and this is a piece of that, really getting the tools we need to bring people together in a community, identify the work that needs to be done to really fulfill our dreams for that community, and then be able to do that work. So that's what a mutual aid network is it's the connection of all these things into an ecosystem that we really believe can start creating flow in a different direction in our and really spin a dynamic that builds toward abundance and equity instead of the dynamic that the dominant late capitalism economy is creating that spins us toward isolation, competition, and scarcity. Any questions about that or comments? Okay.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I keep putting on mute and then I forget how to do it. But, I just wanted to say, Stephanie, that I've been trying to explain the mutual aid network to people and I mean, people are really inspired, but it's just, I almost feel like we need new neuro pathways in our brain to really grasp the possibility that we can live a life where we do what we love and serve the world and work together, and we're not dependent on the money system. And it's just weird. Like when you just said all that, it's like, wow, that sounds new. Like I know I've read it, but it's just weird. And so I'm so glad you're willing to keep repeating it.
Yeah, it's kind of all I do these days. That's great. And I, really the idea is, go ahead, please.
Oh, this is Alice, but you can finish your question. Your answer.
Oh, no, I really think the key is going to be, it might be for us to succeed, and I believe that this is how it will play out, is the hard thinking will be done by the very first people. And then once we start showing it, once we start getting some more systems up and running, we'll have lots of ways to invite people in where you can come and experience it. So I might make a mutual aid network where I have to think it through really hard in my neighborhood and develop all this framework. And, and we are doing this in Madison. We're going to really do a lot of work to establish these baseline tools. But then I can invite you in because you make good videos and I need a video. And I can say, well, I could pay you this little bit of money, but you could get a lot more if you join. And then now you can access these things for these hours that you can earn, and you can access this savings pool to pay your health insurance premium. And so that is really the goal, is to create a situation where we can invite people in based on their own strength, their own need, or their own interest, and they can dip a toe in, but that invites them to sort of dive into the pool because it's fun, because it's apparent, because you have invitations to do some things that are going to be fun and interesting, because maybe you have an elderly parent who needs some care and you suddenly see a way they can get high quality care because you're engaging in this time exchange. So that really is the goal, is to really create a situation where it becomes simple and second nature. And if we take a step back and think about what the economy is right now that we operate in every day, it's completely confusing. It's impossible to understand. It's really complicated. It doesn't make any sense. So we will get to a point where this becomes second nature. Alice, did you want to jump in?
Yes. You mentioned emergency funds or something like that. And so I'm wondering about the mutual aid network, and also, Rains and I are on this path toward probably a revolving loan fund. And so the need I have is to have something like a reverse mortgage. We want to do it without a bank.
Yay.
So I don't know if you, pardon?
Yay. It's great. You don't know if I what? Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if you've talked with Rains about any of this, but anyway, it's our project.
Not yet, but we'll have plenty of time tomorrow and Saturday. And this is exactly what we're looking for. I haven't made a savings pool yet. You are probably farther along in your conversations. The people in New Zealand have been running savings pools for years, and it's going great. They've just decided to consolidate 6 of them because they can do way more. They're running them alongside time banks. So we're all at different stages of development. So I fully intend to get everything I can from your knowledge, from what you've done to set it up. And that's the point of so we are connected in a global mutual aid network, the main man, that we invite everyone to join and participate in. And then we use these things ourselves to share learning back and forth. So I could give you some hours for the time that you spend walking me through your savings pool. You might be able to take those hours and have someone come and help you, with whatever your needs are. And the idea is connecting us all in the main man creates an opportunity where any project, no matter how small, no matter how new, will have access to the best possible expertise in the world on that project. And they'll have access. It will be very visible to you then that there are savings pools that are really well established, that have made mistakes that you can learn from, that have great successes that you can. So as you're describing it this way today, I've been running the time bank in Dane County for 10 years. We've learned a lot, that you don't start where we started. You start where we are now with your time bank. You start with all that learning and all those tools and all those materials that we worked so hard to develop, and you don't have to start at square one. And that's the point for all of us, as we lift each other up, and we constantly continue to lift each other up. Learn from our failures fast, share it. Then it's not a failure because you've given a gift to the world, created nutrients for the next iteration.
Very exciting. Well, I look forward to talking with you about all these things.
Yeah, it'll be really good to be in person. And I think it's very funny that those of us on this web meeting, which we actually did schedule to make accessible to the New Zealand people who've really been showing up to these. So the schedule just didn't work today. But I think it's really funny that we're all going to be in the same space in the next couple of days. However, we're still going to go ahead with the program because recording it and sharing it is a big goal for this. Cool.
Yes, excellent.
Anything else before we move into facilitation?
No. So we're ready.
Okay, great. And I know that you all have a lot to share on this. So this is just my quick and dirty basics on facilitation. But the point is, in order to get really clear on your vision and your mission and how you intend to accomplish it, you need to have good gatherings with people. And good facilitation is really essential. So I'm just sharing some things that I've learned over the years. I do a lot of meeting facilitation, and so do probably all of you. So please share what you have to share. But here are some of the things that have been really helpful to me. So one, be prepared. Create and use checklists. Whenever I'm going into a meeting or a session, I always have some notes about what are the materials I need, so I make sure to bring them all. But even going back farther than that, you might want to have checklists. We actually created this for Dane County Time Bank in the beginning, and we have it available on our website. But checklists going way back before you even schedule the meeting to what's the goal for the meeting? Who do you need to invite? How do you need to invite them? How do you now secure a space? Now make sure you have the technology you need in the space. Now identify the materials that you're going to have to bring. So just to make it easy on yourself so you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time, or that you don't accidentally forget and leave loose ends. So create and use checklists, I think, is quite helpful. I didn't write this on here, but I should add it to the slide. Arrive early. Give yourself a chance to settle in, be there. So if you have some people who show up 5 minutes before the start time, you're there to welcome them and you are relaxed. But then start and end on time, which I violated by starting at 4:05. But if you're going to wait a few minutes for people to arrive, communicate that. Don't just leave people hanging. I think it's very important to respect people's time. There's a little bit I want to add in here because I think it's really important. Different cultures have different approaches to time. So there are places where people, when you say a start time, people expect that things are going to start a half hour later. Actually, the music culture is one of those. Whenever I play a show, I generally expect that whatever time they tell me I'm starting, it's going to be a half hour to an hour later. But, I've been hearing that from people in Latin American cultures and a lot of different places, that people do have different perspectives on time and start times. And if you, and it is our absolute explicit goal to work with people in all different kinds of communities and all different kind of circumstances. And we really want to help create opportunities. And everyone who's been working in time banking, I think, has probably seen this. We want to and need to create opportunities for people to come together from different cultural approaches. So I think that this one can be really important to have really honest and clear discussion about. So I was at a training one time where someone said, I start on time whether anyone's there or not, and it's disrespectful to not be on time. Well, if you are operating in a community where the norm is to start later, I think it can be disrespectful to start right on time if you haven't had this conversation. So respecting people's time, I think, is the number one goal. And if you keep the respect at the center, that's what guides it. But sometimes you really might need to have a conversation about what does it mean for us to respect each other's time. So maybe we do something different in the first half hour for the people who really want to get started on time. And but that my only point is to be upfront about that and have respectful conversation about it with the group. And I'm wondering if anyone here has particular experience with that you would like to share, like particularly good practices around establishing people's understanding of how we respect each other's time.
Well, I do very much agree with you, and I think one of the things that we'll be doing at the Community Connect is there'll be a half hour of open-ended activities before the opening circle, so people can arrive between 6 and 6:30 and just dive in. And so therefore it's we will start right at 6:30, the opening circle, but at least people had a half an hour, to be late, but not really late. Mm-hmm. So it gives them a little bit of a choice.
That's great. And I have found that to be, that's often been a suggested solution, and that's worked well in circumstances for me too. So just a tip from the field about an approach to accommodating people's different perspective on that. Any others that go ahead.
Yes, it's Alice. I think it's really, really important to start whenever the agreement is for the time start, and it helps people feel respected, really,
Yes.
throughout the whole meeting or that. Yeah.
Yes, great. And again, communication is key. Always make it clear what's going on with people. So don't just leave them hanging because you're starting late and waiting for people to come. Let people know what's happening and provide something for them to do that feels meaningful. Great. All right. So then next is know who's in the room, create space for check-in. I have come to feel that introductions that give people a chance to express a little bit about themselves and their interests are essential. I'm in a lot of circumstances, actually it comes up less now, and I think it might be a function of communicating about this. But I've been in a number of circumstances where people feel impatient with that process and feel like it's a waste of time and they want to get right to the heart of the matter. Well, for us, what we're talking about is collaboration, sharing, exchange. Who's in the room and what they care about is the heart of the matter. And so often just communicating that, like, this is one of the most important things we do. We're going to ask you to be brief, but we need to know who's here and what it is that brings you here. Sometimes I ask people to name their organization if they're with one, but I more than that want to know their motivation to be in the room. But then there's another piece of it, which is there's research that shows if people exercise their voice in the very beginning of any gathering, they're much more likely to participate throughout the gathering. And that's another essential piece. And in a couple of minutes, I'll get to where I found that research and some of these other tools. Then acknowledge the wisdom in the room. There easily can be people in the room who are way better at a particular piece, that you're planning to train on, or they might have a really particular insight. And I think that is very essential to acknowledge that and give people a chance to offer their own contributions, or just make it clear that they have a contribution to offer to the group later. Know your objectives going in, which should be what is completely guiding your agenda. So I'm getting people together. I'm going to take up some of their time. I need to have a good reason for that. And then I need to be sure I create an agenda that helps to accommodate that reason and further it. Communicate the agenda at the beginning. So I like to have it written up on a flip chart or a whiteboard, but people want to know what they're going to be doing during that time. So communicate what the agenda is. Let people know what time you're going to end. Capture the outcomes of the meeting. So again, I think it's really good to be writing things big on a flip chart or something so everyone can see and they can see how you're representing what's happening, but also for the future, for whatever your next steps are. Capture and distribute contact information. I think and of course it's essential to ask if people want to share their contact information, but often any gathering, the huge value that comes of it are the connections that people can make with the other people in the room, and to create space for those connections to continue is very important. And always work toward your next step. So during your gathering, you want to be capturing your next steps. For me, that's almost always the last agenda item before checkout is discussing next steps. And then you want to be sure that you follow up on the next steps. Would anyone like to add to this or discuss any particular points of it, or share really great ways you have of doing any of these things?
Well, this is Patricia. I figured out that in order to really satisfy the people who want to move along quickly as well as stay in a schedule, that if I'm going to tomorrow night, we'll have fill in the blank statements that people have the option of completing, like what I'm passionate about and so forth. Like, my name is, and I'm from here. So anyway, they fill in the blanks, and we call it an essence blurb, so that people can really get to know the essence of that person. Now, this is going to take place in 30 seconds. I am going to time it, because if we have 40 people in the room, it's going to take 20 minutes to do just that part. So I'm just, I want to reassure people that timing is not a limitation, but it actually frees us up so that we can stay in the schedule. And I really like timing. And I find that people feel safer when things like short sharings are timed, because those who are shy will fill in that time, and those who often speak too much will feel like, oh, good, I know how much I can talk.
Yes.
So those are some things that I do.
That's great. I just, my friend and coworker just led a session with me at We Share Fest in Paris, and he made this really great, amusing, people really enjoyed it. We decided everyone had about 10 seconds to introduce themselves. And so he timed them by starting with his hands apart and like bringing them together as people were talking. So he had sort of like evaluated how long 10 seconds is with that. And it worked really well because it was funny to people, and it was fun to watch people like speed up at the end as the hands came together. And we started it with me modeling it. It was really fun to just like try to do it in 10 seconds. The only drawback is he said it's really hard to keep your hands up for that long. But just I thought it was a great example of just like sort of a creative and fun and amusing way to do it. And so people didn't feel shut up and they didn't feel rushed. They like appreciated it and they were smiling the whole time. So anything you can do to make it more fun. I really love the essence framework that you just said, Patricia, and that's a great tool. Anything else before we move into the next slide?
Oh, just want to mention real quick, I saw a group that had a goal of causing mischief well, it wasn't exactly a meeting, but gatherings. They wanted to see people, they measured their success by how much people were smiling, and they did have an intention of a little mischief.
Excellent. And actually the workshop that we just did, we called it Mutual Aid Network's Serious Co-op Fun. And I'm really into this serious fun concept now, and I want to really be promoting it and using it as sort of like a slogan for us. But it really, I mean it very sincerely. The whole point of this is to create a situation where our lives can be way more fun, and the way we're going to get there is by playing with these things. And so we need everyone who cares about this stuff to jump in and play with it in a spirit of play, in a spirit of fun, in order to make super serious change in the world. So some basics about Sociocracy 3.0. So we have decided to learn about and experiment with Sociocracy. And I'm going to give a quick and dirty version of Sociocracy. And I'm going to let you know that we hosted a 9-day summit here in Madison last year. And we had a couple hours of Sociocracy training every day. And I still feel like I've barely skimmed the surface of it. And I'm going to even more barely skim the surface of it right now. But I want to just share my perspective of Sociocracy. So Sociocracy is sometimes some people know the term holacracy too. There's some companies that use holacracy as their governance model. And my understanding is holacracy sort of is a business world adaptation of some of the principles of Sociocracy. So there's overlap. They're not identical. And then Sociocracy 3.0 is what we're working with. My friend James Priest in the UK has been working with some partners really developing, like taking Sociocracy to the next level. So they're calling it 3.0. That's what everything I'm talking about is informed by. I have no other Sociocracy training besides that. So just to let you know my limitations and my framework for it. My perspective on what Sociocracy is it is a deeply inclusive, equitable form of governance and decision making. And in my experience, I've been employing people in some form or another since 1992 and working with people in a lot of contexts through time banking and a lot of different things. And my experience with Sociocracy is it really puts into place a lot of just really good practices of working together, such as regular performance evaluations and good role selection and proposal forming and decision making. It goes toward consensus. I feel it accomplishes what consensus seeks to accomplish in a way that's a bit more streamlined. And I'll describe these things. in my perspective, it does all these things in ways that are really rooted in vision and really rooted in some really solid core values. And I feel it helps to depersonalize some of these things that can be quite difficult, like getting evaluated by your peers, for example, or getting selected for a role. It takes these things and somewhat depersonalize them. It's not impersonal, but it makes the feedback, it gets it really rooted in common vision and our effectiveness working together toward a common vision. And it does it with a lot of kindness. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of a couple of the things that were important to me about sociocracy. So one is an impact mapping process that James has given to us. We're actually using it for our strategic planning process, or in our strategic planning process right now. And the impact mapping, rather than starting with a vision, here's what we know we want in the world. We start with the need. They call it a driver, but we start by really identifying what is the need that we're looking to fill. Because a lot of times we jump right to solutions, and we might not be thinking of a solution that actually gets to the problem that we're trying to solve. So starting with the driver and going from there, I think, is a really powerful piece of sociocracy. So what we established as the essential need that we're looking to fill, or the problem we're looking to solve with mutual aid networks, is the problem that people are enslaved to this monetary system, and they're enslaved to this economy, and they're not doing what they want to be doing with our lives. Then that informs what are the action steps we can take. And I'm going to point you toward resources for all this, because we really don't have time to go into any of these in any depth. But I do want to share that starting from the point of the driver or the need or the problem that you're trying to solve can really ground you so much better in what is really the vision you're looking to do. What are the activities you have to do to fill that need? And I think are a more solid place to start. Consent decision making is the thing that we have really been developing the most experience with, and it's been working really well for us. So in consent, it's a little bit different from consensus, and here's how. Well, I mean, it's quite different in process. Here's how it works. First of all, there's a particular proposal forming process where it's very unusual in sociocracy for one person to bring a proposal fully formed. If one person wants to make a proposal, you set up, you have a couple other people also make a proposal. It just really is a way to diminish the occurrence of these things. Like, things tend to happen because there's a dominant personality who brings things fully formed, and really creates opportunities for the group collective intelligence to emerge more around the proposal forming. But once you have a proposal, the way you make a decision, you discuss the proposal, and then you ask every person if they have any objections. So the way I vote for something is to say I have no objections. If I'm really not comfortable with something, I state my objection, but it needs to be rooted in your vision, mission, and aims. So you have to be clear on those before you go into any decision, which I think is essential anyway. So if I am objecting to something, it has to be that I think it will go counter to the vision or mission. I can't just object to something because it's not convenient for me at this point, unless it's core to the vision and mission that I'm available for it. And then if an objection is raised, discussion has to happen until that objection is overcome. And you can consent with concern. So I might still feel like my objection isn't completely resolved, but I'm okay with it going forward. And the questions we ask ourselves about every decision are, is it good enough for now? Is it safe enough to try? And when will we revisit it? So you're always building in that you're going to evaluate a decision. But this good enough for now and safe enough to try, in my experience and many of my cohorts, really frees us up, really unlocks us, and creates a sort of psychological, emotional space to move forward on things that might be scary. We are trying to invent a new world. No, we're not trying. We are inventing a new world. And we have to be able to take bold action, and we have to be able to take some risks, but is it good enough for now? Is it safe enough to try? And then when we revisit it. So everyone has to consent in some way. If there's an objection, we're not going forward with it. We have to tweak the proposal until that objection is surmounted. But it really changes sort of, it really helps to mitigate the issues with consensus where one person can block something by having it be rooted in vision, mission, and aim, and by having some clean processes around that. Any questions on that? And we're going to have to be brief. We have 14 minutes left and we will end on time, just so you know. But any quick questions about consent decision making? That's the one I have most experience with.
Well, I don't really have any questions. I just will say, finally, you're a master at describing things in a nutshell, and finally, I have sociocracy in a nutshell, and I feel really cool.
Great, thanks. So then there's some other things. I'm very sorry I actually missed the role selection training, and that's something I'm really excited to learn more about, and we'll be doing it. But there's some good processes for role selection to identify people's key strengths and who will be most appropriate for a role. Again, kind of depersonalizing a bit, rooting it in vision, mission, and aim, and group conversation about it. So people don't just end up in roles through happenstance or because they wanted to do it, but they're not actually the right person for it. Proposal forming, I already referred to some processes for really being sure that you don't create a situation where there's just a dominant personality and we do what they want to because they're good at proposing their own ideas first. Constructive feedback, I actually went through this process in a big group and it was crazy to do it. It felt very intimidating, but it was lovely, and it's quite a comfortable way to get feedback. So what they had me do is identify someone who could be sort of considered my superior, for lack of a better term, in our work, like someone who would be in more of a supervisory role, and then someone who would sort of be in a role that's under my authority in some way. And the three of us were the ones who engaged in the constructive feedback process. And it is like if you've heard the term praise sandwich, it starts with all the affirmations and you just go around the circle, and I do it too. I say all the things I think I'm doing well, and they do that too. And we go through until we've exhausted it. And then we talk about things that could improve, again, with me starting, everyone having a chance to share until we have gone through what could be improved to make me more effective in my role. And then I offer up a way forward to improve those things, and we all discuss that, and we're done. And then I'm obligated to move forward on that. And I found it to be quite lovely, even in front of 40 people. It was great. And then this other piece, again, I'm going to just touch on very briefly. There's some really solid stuff about how you create a fractal organization that has good linking between people in operations and people in governance. So I can't really go into it here. It's a bit complicated, and I don't think I could just do it justice by just trying to describe it quickly. But for example, like we have a certain set of work groups around mutual aid networks, or in the main man. So we have a technical work group and we have a social working group. A lot of individual pilot sites will have similar work groups. So one of the things that you do is you have people who are in those operations. You have one representative from each of them, and they get together and they share best practices. And that group has a representative in governance. So you always are linking between governance and operations. And that's about all I can say about that now. I think that we all should want to learn much more about that, but we just don't have time today. What I have provided here is a link to Sociocracy 3.0 and their website, and they are committed to having everything be freely shared and open source. And then here are some other resources that I'm sharing, and I am going to post these slides online. And I actually can just give you the link to them right now. They're on Google Slides, so they're available to everyone. So some of the things that have been very helpful to me are art of hosting, is where I've learned a lot about facilitation, facilitating circle processes, facilitating conversations that matter, using World Cafe, Open Space, Action Cafe. So there are a lot of different processes that can really help collective wisdom emerge in a group, and can help really difficult conversations and difficult problems really find solutions emerging from the wisdom of the group, in much easier ways than we think they might happen. So I gave you a link to Art of Hosting, and they share their tools on their website. Then we have a video of sociocracy, an overview of our sociocracy training that we did. So here's a link to that. And then a conversation with James about sociocracy. And as we continue, we actually are aiming to create a new set of bylaws for the main man, maybe within the year, maybe a little bit longer, but to really root our bylaws in sociocracy. Right now, they're much more standard cooperative bylaws with our enhanced core principles, but we really want to, as much as possible, really embody these things that we're learning. Any questions about that?
I did want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wanted to know, are you encouraging then the pilot programs to adopt sociocracy? Is it a requirement?
There's no requirement. So the only requirements in mutual aid networks are that you abide by the core principles, and you can find those on our website. And those are the only requirements. You don't have to legally organize in a particular way. You don't have to use a particular governance model. And in fact, the more diversity there is, the better, because we really want to, we want a lot of people experimenting with a lot of things and sharing how they work for you. So I don't want to prescribe anything or proscribe anything, but it has to be rooted in the core values. So if you're using some sort of governance model that excludes people, that leaves a group of people powerless in the decision making, then no, you're not a mutual aid network. You're not abiding by the core principles. But if you're finding some awesome new way to engage everybody, we want to know, and we want you to experiment with it. And we want to share what we think is really cool. So that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out to me the most that is so beautiful about this is that it's it's a way of people to do prototypes, learn from them, not to be afraid to step out, and just to share with people all over the world, and so that this knowledge base can grow as quickly as possible, so that we can make some profound changes.
And that's a beautiful segue to my next slide. And many of you, but maybe not all of you know, our strategy is to have pilot sites in different places, starting with different local conditions, different strengths and limitations. And we use these tools in our pilot sites, and then we use them to connect across our pilot sites, eventually creating a situation in the not too distant future where every single human on the planet can be part of a network that is networked and linked with every other human on the planet. So we always have an incentive to support each other, lift each other up, and we have tools to do that. We have the means to do that. So that's the goal. And on this trip that I'm on, I've found people who want to do it in Panama, the Czech Republic, Brussels, Belgium, Seattle, Washington, San Francisco, Palestine, indigenous land in Vancouver, and the list goes on and on. So we have some super exciting opportunities, and I'm very happy that you are joining with us. And I'm really happy to have some more West Coast United States representation here. And that concludes this particular installment of our weekly web series. And what I would like to do as my final facilitation process that I think is important is give everyone a chance to check out. So Alice and Patricia, do you want to start with your checkout? Just share a word or two about what you want to take forward from this, or anything else that you feel compelled to share with us.
Well, I just want to say I am so excited that Rain's introduced me to you, and you're going to be here tomorrow for 2 days, and I think anybody who is going to be there is going to be enriched, and I hope we're going to get a pilot program started right after you leave or during.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks. Alice?
Hi. This is lovely. I ditto what Patricia said. I'm getting excited for tomorrow, and it's very fun. It's great working with her, and I'm so thankful to Rains because so much of what I know in the world is because of him. He made the connection to you.
Wonderful.
So thank you.
Thank you. Keith?
Yeah. Keith.
Keith, are you here? Would you like to check out?
Yes, I'm really excited also about meeting you this weekend. And I have a little software that I'd like to show you.
Yeah, great. Yes, and in case I haven't made it clear, when we talk about we're making this, we're sharing this, I mean all of us, everyone. It's not like a little team in Madison, Wisconsin. What we're doing is creating the infrastructure for all of us to connect, because everything we need is here right now. All we have to do is connect, access it, share it. So thank you. I'm super excited to learn more from you about what you're doing. I'm really happy that I can be with all of you in person. When we're together, I'll invite you into some things in the future. We're going to be hosting another summit in Madison at the end of August, where we do skill shares among different pilot site projects and really orient people to the tools we're using and give you an opportunity to help us refine them, connect up with other tools like your mobile app, so that there's tons of possibilities. So save the last week of August, please. And in the meantime, my checkout is I'm very happy to be in your part of the world right now, and I'm really happy that we'll meet in person, and thank you all very much for joining.
Thank you, Stephanie.
All right, take care. We will be back same time, same place next week. Have a great evening, day, whatever time it is where you, I guess we're all in the same time zone right now. So have a great evening, and I'll see you soon.